All right, here's where I left you off. There are your grana, and when you look inside, you see the thylakoid membrane, the light area, and the thylakoid lumen, the dark area. Inside that thylakoid membrane, it is like a membrane that we talked about in Science 10. You have your phospholipid bilayer, and you have proteins that are embedded in there. In that protein is where we find photosystem 2. That's the first photosystem. Kind of confusing. Photosystem 2 comes before photosystem 1. They are named in the order they were discovered rather than the order in which they occur. So here's this first photosystem, which is photosystem 2, and light will strike that photosystem, and so we'll watch light striking it. When light strikes that photosystem, electrons get energized, and they start to wriggle around and get a lot of energy, and when they get energized, they're going to jump up to a higher energy level within that protein. So they jump up because they're energized from the sunlight. Where do those electrons come from? That's important. They come from the breakdown of water. So when we look at the structure of water, H2O, water is also getting broken down by sunlight in the plant. And when water gets broken down, it's going to get broken down into its component parts. And we remember what water is made up of: 2 hydrogens and 1 oxygen. And when the hydrogens and the oxygens split apart, we can't forget that the reason that this structure has formed is because of electrons. Electrons are what are shared in this molecule. It's a molecular compound, remember from Science 10. And when this molecule breaks apart, it releases those electrons. And it's the electrons from the water molecule that hop into that photosystem 2 to get energized by light. What happens to the hydrogens? Something happens to the hydrogens. We're going to talk about that. What happens to the oxygen? Something happens to the oxygen. We're going to talk about that. So let's watch this animation, and I'll stop it really quick. But here you have water breaking apart. Notice the electrons hop into photosystem 2. The hydrogens are going to move away. The oxygen is going to move away. I'll tell you right now, the oxygen is going to be released into the atmosphere. This is where the oxygen comes from in photosynthesis. This is one of the products already. We've already created a product of photosynthesis. And then animals will breathe that in for cellular respiration. So if we continue along, your hydrogens are going to pop off, and we'll talk about those in a minute. Your electrons get energized. And when the electrons get energized, they move to a higher energy level in that photosystem. When this negative charge moves towards the outside of the grana, that's going to attract positive charges. So it's actually going to pull hydrogens towards it. And so as the electrons move up, watch my cursor, hydrogens get pulled down. And at the same time, your electrons and your hydrogens, because of negative charges and positive charges being attracted to each other, they're going to move along this cytochrome enzyme system at the same time and be transferred to, look over here, another photosystem. That's photosystem 1 over there. Check out your oxygen's getting released. So here we continue. We watch this electron and hydrogen pair kind of transfer towards another protein in the pathway. And at the same time, you still have your sunlight energizing your electrons over here. This is all a continual process. And your electrons are going to get energized over here. They're going to pull more hydrogens in. That's going to make this pathway happen again. These electrons are going to move to the next level. And let's watch what happens. So these ones move up. Hey, look, there's the electrons coming from water. These electrons will bind with this hydrogen, get drawn over here. These ones are headed over to this other photosystem. So this process is going to keep happening. So water is going to keep getting broken down. Electrons are going to be continually added to photosystem 2. Photosystem 2 is going to be energized by light, energizing those electrons, which is going to pull hydrogens in, draw them through this cytochrome enzyme system, all the way bringing these electrons to this other photosystem, photosystem 1.